Hello and welcome to the State of JRock's Babylon. This is our show where we do kind of a monthly check-in, let you guys know what's going on with our site and with everything that we do here at JRock's Babylon. Now, actually, to be more specific, JRock's Babylon, our story began on August 1st when we launched our channel. Very first thing we posted was a big welcome. I kind of posted a little quick hello, let everybody know we are launching the channel. And as many of you know, before JRock's Babylon, for the last 17 years, I was pretty much the face and the voice of Chaotic Riffs. Started out as Chaotic Riffs magazine, it morphed into Chaotic Riffs TV. Now, that right there kind of tells you, I was with Chaotic Riffs for a very long time, 17 years to be exact. I will say that for most of that time, the 16 years was pretty happy. It was the last year, but it wasn't so great in 2025. So, from January 2025 to August of last year, they kind of took a turn for the worse at Chaotic Riffs. The owner of the site just kind of became much more of a control freak, and we don't really have to get into that. But for the first 16 years at Chaotic Riffs, we started out as Chaotic Riffs magazine, to be more specific. In the beginning, it was a site where, because again, technology was very new, the internet was very new, and people were learning how to take advantage and use it. And so I had always been a guy who was into hard rock and heavy metal music. And so I saw this as an opportunity to kind of try to do something I'd always wanted to do. Now, I'm not a musician myself, but I always, I love the idea of trying to reach out to musicians and bands and not only put a spotlight on them, but have the option to interview them. And so very early on in the history of Chaotic Riffs magazine, what we started out as was very much like an online magazine where I would conduct interviews with people, these musicians. I'd reached out, first of all, to these people through email. And then we'd set up a day and time to do the interview. I have to do it after work because I work during the day, but got home early enough to conduct some of these interviews. And if need be, we could do the interview on the weekend. And so these were interviews that were all done over the phone, old school way, they say. We'd contact people through email, and the interview would be conducted over the phone. And then, initially, I should say that what we do is I'd email people a set of questions, and they'd email the answers back, and we'd post it up on the site, and we'd find pictures on the internet to post them with. Well, a few years after the site was launched, things got to the point where not only was I conducting the interview over the phone, but I thought, hey, I got a digital recorder. Now I can tape the conversations, and instead of having to write everything out, we can post the actual audio. I'd send it off to the owner of the site, and he'd do his magic, and he'd piece everything together, the audio and the video. Very beautiful package we put together for people to tune in. And that is how I really got into all of this. So I did that for like 16 years. And then the 17th year, which was 2025, the owner, for whatever reason, he just became a total control freak. It got to the point where, all those years I was booking all the interviews and booking all the shows. He didn't have a problem with that. But all of a sudden, in an effort to try to get numbers and, he started telling me stuff like, okay, Jason, you're no longer going to be allowed to book the shows. I'm going to have to book everything. You're going to have to go through me. I only want top tier bands to be interviewed for our site. And again, this was in an effort to get the numbers to go up. And I've been working with many publicists who got me a lot of great interviews over years. And I told them, look, you can't put me in that position. I said, first of all, I'm at work all day, so I don't exactly have all the time in the world to be calling you to get your permission every time I want to interview a band. I said, that's not how it's been done for the last 16 years. And so, we started to butt heads. And his thing was all about the numbers because I was really dedicated to what I was doing. He was too, but like I had a conversation with the owner, and I told him, you know what, I got into this, for the fun of it. Have fun. It wasn't, I said, if opportunity comes along to make some money, of course, I want to do that. But all of a sudden, that's all this guy could think of. He was trying to blow the site up all of a sudden. After 16 years, it's either going to happen or it's not. We had a loyal fan base, a loyal following. but he didn't care any about that. And I told him, I can't tell these publicists that I'm working with when they send me to press releases to interview their bands. Oh, sorry, got to get permission to see if this is a top tier band. We only are concerned about top tier bands. So it became something that I was struggling with, and it got to a point where I made the decision to walk away from Chaotic Risk in August of 2025 and launched JRock's Babylon. Now we're 5 months into doing since we've done that, and we've done many interviews. We've launched many shows. Now let's tell you what's been going on. Lately. Now lately been like a lot of you busy because of the holiday season. At the end of the year, when you do a site like this, that's typically the time of year where things start to kind of wrap up for the year. People go on vacations. I to the very end was doing as many of these interviews as I possibly. My very last interview, and it was a great one that I did for the year, was with Irv Lyons. Now, Irv Lyons, if you don't know who he is, look him up. He's kind of reminds me of a Carlos Santana type of rock guy. A great guitar player, great singer songwriter. He's on Fire Rock Music Group. That's how I got the interview to begin with. My good buddy Tom Collier of a president and guitar player and founding member, of course, of Held Hostage, and of course the president and CEO of Fire Rock Music Group. That's his label. That's how I got the interview with Irv. And of course, as you know, Tom is my former co-host at This Is Metal show, and Tom is one guy that I stay in touch with. He's just a totally cool, great guy. Never had any issues with Tom. Me and him constantly working on things together. So Tom's a constant friend and somebody I look up to, and I appreciate his talent and everything that Tom has done. So that's one of the great things that happened as a result of Chaotic Risk. Is I got the opportunity to interview Tom, and that's how me and him first came to know one another. And from the get-go, Tom just seemed like a really super nice, down-to-earth guy. That's why when the original host, Joe Lawson, left This Is Metal show, I decided, let's try to find a new co-host. And Tom was one of three guys on the top of my list, and I'm so glad that he agreed to do the show. That's another thing, though, sadly, that came to an end was the This Is Metal show last August, because once these things started happening, and then Tom's successful label, he was going to walk away from the show anyways. But I also decided to walk away from a show because things just weren't working out, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with Tom. We could have continued to do it, but again, the owner of Chaotic Risk TV, he decided he just wanted to kill the show. He told me basically, well, why do a show, Jason, where every 2 years you got to replace the co-host? He didn't really, his heart wasn't in it. He wanted, which is kind of stupid because even if he didn't want me to stay on as a host, he could have two new hosts. Music business being what it was, because it was on his site, he would have been allowed to get two new hosts. He wasn't interested in doing that. So in a way, I'm kind of honored that the This Is Metal show ended with me and Tom. Maybe that's the way it was meant to be. But I'm doing this now, and I'm having a ball. In fact, people tell me when they see me posting these interviews and he shows up on JRock's Babylon, hey, man, you're smiling a lot more. You look a lot happier. I'm not so stressed out. I'm able to do whatever the hell I want. I don't have to check in with anybody. It doesn't matter if it's a top tier band. So that's why I seem so happy. I really, really am. And one of the things I've really been into the last several years, well, really all my life, is pop culture. So I previously done a pop culture show called Garbor's Time Machine. We talked a lot about that in the past, so I won't spend too much time doing it now. But when I launched JRock's Babylon, I knew I wanted to do a pop culture show, but I knew I also didn't want to make it a carbon copy of what had come before. Not that I was ashamed of it, because I just loved doing the show before with my former co-host Gar Boris. I mean, it was a great fun show. I mean, Sundays I really look forward to every other Sunday doing it with him. I was really sad to see it come to an end. But so when I decided to create another pop culture show, it's time to move on. Time to do something new. Now, right now, and it could change down the line, but right now, what we're doing is called JRock's Pop Culture Revolution Show. So again, I kind of knew, last part of 2020, I kind of knew that I was going to be doing something eventually on my own. So I was coming up with all these kind of names. I want to have a flashy name for a pop culture show, but again, it couldn't sound too much like the old show because I'm doing this on my own right now. Maybe down the line we'll get a co-host. Another thing I'm thinking in regards to the pop culture show, again, JRock's Pop Culture Revolution. Okay, that's a flashy name. It tells them who's doing it, who the host is. Um, Pop Culture Revolution. I like the sound of that. Sounds pretty flashy. And so another thing I'm toying with is having some guest hosts come on in the meantime, because it's much more fun to do a pop culture show, have somebody else on the screen with you to talk about it. You go back and forth and it kind of takes up time. But so that's something we're looking into in 2026 that you can, I can almost bet your bottom dollar, we're going to be a few episodes where we do have some of these guest hosts, and wait till you see who some of these people are. So it's really going to be a lot of fun. And again, like I was saying, the interview I did with Irv Lyons from of artists on JRock Music Group, it was the last interview I did for 2025, and I could not believe the response I got. In fact, it was probably the most viewed interview we've done to date. And what surprised me is if you watch the video, I guess that's one thing people get out of it. Irv is a super nice, talented guy, super friendly and down to earth. You can't help but like him, very much like my good friend Tom Collier, and so I can see why those two would get along. But that being said, it was the most popular interview we did since we launched it. And it's pretty interesting because Irv is not like he's not like a top tier musician, as they say. He's top tier what he does. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like a named act or anything that we interviewed. So I was really happy to see that, and that goes to show you the attitude of previous person I worked with at Chaotic Risk. We only want top tier guests. Well, you never know what you're going to get. You never know how people are going to react to something. So I rather have a party, JRock's Babylon, where everybody is welcome, everybody is invited. Even since launching JRock's Babylon, as a favor to a friend of mine, she reached out to me. She's a publicist, and she said, "Hey, I got a couple artists that they aren't really hard rock or metal artists. Would you be willing to interview them?" And I thought, okay, you know what? As a favor to you, I'll do it. And I'm always open to having a conversation with anybody. And it was a real fun interview. And it didn't get a ton of views, but it got enough views that people were checking it out. So again, you got to have your mind open. You can never know what you're going to get until you try it. So again, with the holidays just passing, a thing I used to like to do on the old pop culture show, which we're doing at JRock's Babylon with the Pop Culture Revolution show, is around the holiday time, which for me starts in October, because holidays start with Halloween, then you move into Thanksgiving and Christmas. So one of the things I really loved to do as a kid growing up was around the holiday time, they'd have all these holiday specials, like The Grinch That Stole Christmas. And then you got stuff like, Charlie Brown's Christmas, Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving. They when I was a kid, they used to air The Wizard of Oz, like around Thanksgiving time every year. So that was another favorite thing to do. So we got in talking about some of these holiday specials. So in fact, for episode, one of the recent episodes of the Pop Culture Revolution show we did, I believe it was episode number 14, we did a Christmas Day special. And what I thought was fun about doing this was talked about some of my favorite Christmas songs, favorite Christmas traditions, some things I like to watch during Christmas, some of my special Christmas memories. It was a real fun episode. And then, another fun thing about that episode of the Christmas Day special, if you check it out, is I have a couple of friends that every Christmas Day they really get into the Yuletide log, which is basically this picture of a burning log in a fireplace every year over some Christmas music for like 8 or 9 hours Christmas Day. Some people really get into it. My two friends, I never really got into it, but I kind of was wondering about the history of it. And so I looked it up, and in the Christmas Day special, I tell you all about how that got started and why. And really interesting history to find out, even though I really myself never got into it, but I found out why it was started. So that's another fun thing about doing these shows, and so we also did a New Year's Day special on JRock's Babylon, because I got thinking about some of the history of a New Year's Eve tradition. The countdown, the countdown at 12 midnight for kissing somebody at midnight. All these things that we grew up on, and we talk about in the New Year's Day special. Quite interesting things that I found out, and I wanted to share with you guys. And again, we also always want to have fun on the holidays, so I thought let's have a holiday kind of themed episode. So um, we did that. Okay, now let's see, episode 15 for the pop culture revolution. I decided to do on a classic movie from 1977. I'm talking about Oh God, starring both the late great George Burns, my late great John Denver. We talked all about why I just loved that film so much and what it meant to me. That was a really fun episode to do. Um, and I'm an avid DVD collector, so like one day I was just looking at my DVD collection. I came across this old movie from 1977. Oh God, it was a DVD copy, and of course I hadn't seen it in years. So I told myself I'm gonna watch that again, and I'm gonna do an episode of Pop Culture Revolution talking all about it. And people really responded to that one, and it was really fun to do. I just can't say enough about this, except to check it out. And then the latest episode of the Pop Culture Revolution I did just last night, and I look back on I made a list. I picked my top five favorite TV sitcom episodes of all time, and we tell you specifically about what episode it was and why it meant so much to me. It was a real fun episode to do. I mean, it goes almost an hour. That's how much we had to talk about. Um, okay, another great interview we recently did on JRock's Babylon um, before the end of the year was with lead singer Jason McMaster. Many of us know him, from, of course, from Dangerous Toys, Broken Teeth. But we talked specifically about the fact that there's a new Dangerous Toys CD out called Demolition, which, as you can guess, is a collection of old old demos of Dangerous Toys that they put out on Cleopatra Records. So we talked about that, and we also talked about Night Terror, which is a new band that Jason is in. That also features guitarist Jack Frost from Sabotage and Aldo Nova. And so we talked a little bit about Night Terror, and Jason was a great, fun guy to interview. I interviewed him, over a year several times, but I'd say it's been a good 10 to 15 years since I last interviewed him. And again, this was the first time I interviewed him for JRock's Babylon, so that made it real noteworthy. And he was coming live from his house in Texas, his studio, to be specific, his home studio. He mentions during the interview that he does a podcast of his own, and so we talked a little bit about that. And he had a great studio setup. So if you check out the Jason Master interview, a lot of people did. You will see that. Okay, let me see. Okay, and then later today, I will be doing an interview with Blacklight District lead singer Kyle Pfeiffer, and I've interviewed Kyle about two or three times previously. It was for Chaotic Risk. This will be the first time he's being interviewed for JRock's Babylon, so that'll make the interview that much more fun. For no other reason that it's it's for this site now, and we're building we're building the site up to the point that I'm really proud that I make a real effort to get as much new content for you guys as much as I possibly can. I try to post at least 2 to 3 things every week. Keep in mind that I go to work during the day, so I do this in the evening sometimes after I get off of work, or right now, like on the weekend when I have the whole weekend off. So that's a lot of time when these episodes are made. Keep in mind, and it's something I have a lot of fun doing. And I will tell you that the one thing that I enjoyed about the launch of JRock's Babylon is, like I said, I knew that I knew that Chaotic Risk was going to come to an end. I was going to have no choice but to walk away from it. So I knew that I was going to do something new, and then it allowed me time to think of a name. And I think I shared this with you guys before. How I came up with the name was okay, JRock is what I've been known for the last 17 years at Chaotic Risks. Now, when I walked away from Chaotic Risks, the guy that owned the site tried to tell me, I don't think you're going to call yourself JRock. That's associated with my site. I told him, hey, look, I am JRock. I am Jason JRock Houston. You can't take my name away from me. I told him, I know you haven't copywritten. You are not JRock Jason Houston, so you can't even pretend to be me. So I knew I was going to carry on with the JRock name. That was the first thing. Okay, and then Babylon, I was thinking, like, again, I had time to think of all this, and I was trying to think, I need a real flashy name, something that sounds cool. And I could never have come up with Babylon on my own. How I did was I was in my room one day trying to think of names, and I pulled out a couple of CDs. Okay, one was a Tom Kiefer CD, one was an LA Guns CD. Um, they both happen to have a song called Babylon. I also remembered from back around 1987 off the debut Faster Pussycat album that they also had a song I love called Babylon. So I said, okay, three hard rock kind of songs called Babylon. God's trying to tell me something here. And then I thought, what if we put JRock and Babylon? JRock's Babylon. That's how I came up with that, folks. And then the the beautiful background you see there, of course, that is AI generated. That is something that I created with Facebook. And basically, what you do, it's called Meta AI. If you're on Facebook, you can play around with it. And you got to get real descriptive. The more descriptive you are, the better. Now, AI is a very tricky thing because I did not come up with this background right away. Again, you have to be very good at being very descriptive. And I kind of have an idea of what you want. But if you're very descriptive and you kind of have an idea, you end up with something like this. However, oftentimes AI is not perfect, and like if you're trying to create a character or something, it may take a few times to get it right. It may spit out like a person with has three hands or something. You're like, what the hell is that? But you got to play with it a little, folks. And I had the patience to do it, and that's how I came up with this. And I really love it. It looks metal. Um, you know, again, another way I came up with the idea for this was I'm a Dead Daisies fan, and a lot of the Dead Daisies albums, if you notice, they have like a heavy metal kind of inspired skull, and that's exactly how I worded. I said, give me like a heavy metal kind of fire breathing inspired skull with snakes, and this is what it came up with. Um, and I got a few other backgrounds, but I think this one looks the best. And let's talk about what is Babylon. Babylon is kind of a fun, unique, kind of different place to go. So I hope you will come to JRock's Babylon and see the site that we built, site that we continue to build. Now I'm working on something called the Road to 100. What is the Road to 100? Well, the Road to 100 is the fact, folks, that my goal is to sooner than later to have 100 things up on our site. When I say 100 things, I'm talking about episodes of JRock's Pop Culture Revolution, um, different episodes of our show, which is where we have interviews with a lot of these great musicians. Again, maybe down the line you'll also see me interview somebody, maybe an actor or an actress. So not doesn't necessarily have to be a musician, but that's what we've done so far. So the road to 100 is my goal, to get 100 episodes of our shows up on there. Currently, we're at number 64. We've posted 64 things on our site to date, and we just keep rolling them out. Another show I'm really proud of that we do once a month is called Remembering Our Generations. Now, remember in our generations, I do with I have a great co-host, Vince Lupo. Vince is he's currently in a great Moody Blues tribute band called, I believe they just launched, the beginning of this year called Futures Past. Um, Plays a lot of other great tribute bands, but that's the thing he's focusing on right now. And Vince and I met years ago. Um, Never actually met him, but we started working together on a show called Remembering Woodstock, where you can look that up and catch some of our episodes. But Remembering Woodstock was where we focused specifically on Woodstock era bands, and then Remembering Woodstock kind of phased out. We did, Vince started doing a lot of live performing, so he had to kind of put the show on hold, and it kind of just faded away eventually. Um, Vince and I stayed in touch though, and we'd always wanted to kind of take our show to the next phase, the next level, if you will. And so while we are still, I was still with Chaotic Risk TV. We launched Remembering Our Generations on that site, and we gotten three episodes up, and then the split with Chaotic Risk happened, and so I got permission to continue to do a show because the owner at Chaotic Risk, he was not interested in Remembering Our Generations. It's not metal; it has to be metal for our site, and so I knew we had a great show, so he allowed me to continue on with Remembering Our Generations, and we carried it over here to JRock's Babylon, and it's something I enjoy doing once a month. Um, in fact, I think episode number 7 we're going to do by the end of this month, and Vince and I have already agreed we're going to do an episode on um, American Bandstand, and that'll be a real fun one to see. And the thing with Remembering Our Generations, first of all, how we got the title is anybody watch the show, you'll see Vince and I, no doubt, come from two different generations. Um, and yet, the one thing that brings us together is our love for all things music. And Vince was much more of a fan of Woodstock era music when we did the previous show together. But I love doing the show with him so much. I mean, I call him a rock and roll historian. He really knows what he speaks of. He's a musician himself. He's lived the life. So he's a great one to have as a co-host. Um, and so he introduced me to a lot of these Woodstock era bands. I was aware of these bands, but like for example, we did an episode on Blood, Sweat, and Tears. That's a band I never really got too much into, but I had to do my homework on the band and prepare for the episode. Because at least when I do these episodes, I want to come across as at least I know what I'm talking about. So I did my homework, and it was a fun kind of process to learn because it was a way of kind of learning about history through music, if you know what I mean. And that's what made it so fun. So when I had the idea to do Remembering Our Generations, I reached out to Vince and I said, "Hey, Vince, it'll be a similar type of show, but we're not going to be so restricted because, first of all, we don't have to only talk about Woodstock era music. We can talk about anything we want." And in the episodes we've done so far, we talked about, just to give you the kind of diversity of the music we've discussed, we talked about everything from Jimi Hendrix to the Beatles appearing on Ed Sullivan, Elvis Presley. And so Cream, we've really gotten into it. We just really kind of scratched the surface with the show. Another fun aspect of the show that really differed from original Remembering Woodstock podcast, which was much more of a radio type podcast because you didn't see us, you just heard us talking over the internet. And that's another thing that's really kind of changed. The show Vince and I do now, Remembering Our Generations, we do over Zoom. So you actually get to see what we look like, not just what we sound like. I really enjoy doing the show with Vince and getting to converse with him that way, and actually seeing him on screen and he can see me on screen. It gives the show a whole different dynamic. So again, I want to thank you guys all for tuning into JRock's Babylon. We're just getting started. Remember about the road to 100. I also urge you all to join both the Facebook page and our YouTube page. And also, I launched a page for the JRock's Pop Culture Revolution show because we're up to 16 episodes already with that show, and it's getting to be a very popular show. And so it really deserved to have a page of its own. So that's another place you can go to check out all the episodes for that show. I urge you guys to not only join that page, but please comment, please leave your thoughts, because that will allow us to know what you guys are thinking to make the shows even better for you. And and once again, folks, you can also subscribe, like I said, to the YouTube page. That's where all our shows are archived. That's a great place to go. Please make sure you subscribe. And thanks again for checking this out. Tune in. We're going to have even more for you guys in the coming days. Thanks again. Bye for now. This has been Jason, JRock, Houston.